When I started this One Piece journey, there was always a lingering thought in the back of my head, constant fear, like that one scene from Jurassic Park 3. And that was when I saw the total amount of episodes for this one arc, Dressrosa, 118 episodes, almost over 40 hours. I probably could have learned a new habit, but nope, 40 hours of me watching One Piece. I always heard One Piece had bad pacing when it comes to the anime. Out of all the arcs, even against Wano, I always heard Dressrosa was the worst pacing in the anime. There's whole memes about it. The pacing to many fans was so bad that they had to create a fan-made project called One Piece just to fix it. But is it as bad as people say? Is it actually as bad in the manga too? Or is Dressrosa an arc ruined by the anime's pacing? Let's start off with that main issue, the pacing. When I first started this arc, it got me wondering, so how bad is the pacing actually bad? Extremely. To prove how horrendous it is, I made a whole Excel sheet where I watched the anime episode and watched the chapter back to back and compared how long it was. So that means I've seen this arc twice. 100 chapters, 118 episodes, and at least over 50 hours of my sanity left behind, like a dust in the wind, or like a turd in the wind. So to figure out how long it was, I just did simple divisions of how far it was compared to the end of the chapter. To see how long the pages to episode was, I just read till the episode was finished and just did simple division if it didn't finish the chapter. Then add the leftovers to the next episode or page, whichever one you want to call it. And on average, they adapted around 10 to 15 pages. The total average is 0.82, which given for pacing standards, that is astronomically low. And do you want to know what the lowest one was? Episode 657 adapted only 0.4. That is less than half of a chapter. How can you do that? Well, for this example, half the episode was about Rebecca versus a giant guy. But then the second lowest paced episode, which it didn't have any of the filler stuff episodes in it, was 0.41, which was episode 738. The saddest part is the highest it ever went was a chapter and a quarter with episode 642 and episode 670. I don't even know how that's possible. How can you do that? Like trying to extend the warranty on a condom, like they somehow did it. So given that estimate, and that the average episode's around 18 minutes long, without the intro song, the recap, or the next time on Dragon Ball Z, plus the average pages is 10 to 15, that means every episode is around 1.8 pages to 1.2 pages per minute of an episode. What can you do? Well, according to the internet, my most valuable resource, many people try and think about how to fix this. To start with the most obvious answer, filler arcs. Filler arcs, they can be good. It gives more time for the mangaka to write their story, and it gives the animators time to give out better paced episodes. But there's a cost. I think One Piece should have more filler arcs. It's obviously the best solution to this. But do you remember how the other two of the big three went? Bleach and Naruto? They're widely regarded as the filler arcs ruined the experience. And given how much story-paced One Piece is right now, it can heavily affect the experience. Like imagine after this arc, they just take down Joker and they're about to head towards Zoe. Then all of a sudden, they're at a spa. Like yeah, it can be fun, but there's also the fact that to many fans, One Piece has very little good filler. The only one people do like is the one many fans suck the living like cock out of, which is G8. I don't hear anything else about from the other filler arcs. Most fans, they just shit on it like their toilet paper. So what about the second option, making it a seasonal anime? So what's the story of this arc? Well, so the Straw Hats arrive on an island with a guest they've been with for a little bit. somewhere where it has a warlord for a long time and the people love, which the guest on the ship also worked for. The Marines are there somehow, and at the end they help the Straw Hats, and the leader gains respect for them. Luffy grows in the arc and has a new form. They almost get more crew members, and it impacts the story in a different way.
Wait a minute!
That's just Alabasta. Yep, the more I thought about it, the more I felt like, yeah, this was just Alabasta too. But hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Plus it adds more to it, like slavery. Toys coexisting with humans, and that scares Luffy so much, the fact that a human fucked a toy. But turns out those toys are human too, as the people forget about their memories of them thanks to Sugar's devil fruit powers. Plus there's also short people, and Fishman Island did this too, where it kind of felt like a worse version of Arlong Park. So let's kind of divide this up. So it starts off in a Coliseum, which slowly over time lost my interest, if I'm being honest. The Coliseum felt so great. I was so excited for it when I saw the opening. I was like, oh my god, Luffy's at a Coliseum? A bunch of random Super Smash Brothers guest appears? But then it felt longer and longer, and eventually I was just like, come on, just please let it end. Even in the manga, it lasted for like a quarter of the arc. Like, to describe Dressrosa is like, it felt like too much was happening, but at the same time, they could have easily cut out stuff and could have made the arc shorter. Like, the Coliseum felt too long. Around the time Rebecca was fighting, which, speaking of her, many fans hate her. The flashbacks in this are downright bad. I started counting how many times they would have a flashback, and there was around 43-ish times they went to a flashback. Doesn't matter whose, there was just one there. And even if Rebecca is the one that had the most times their flashback was used, I actually hate her dad more. Her dad was so boring, so generic. A pile of toast would have been more entertaining. And he was the main reason all they were always flashing back, just because he was screaming. Like, even in the manga, they do this. They always flash back to his, but the difference is, you could just skip over it. Now with the episodes, it's almost like 2 minutes long, and that's already like 10% of the episode. I think one of the second most highest was like, surprisingly, Luffy's backstory. After Sohan was reintroduced, they just kept on flashing back to it. But yeah, it was Rebecca's dad that was most of the problem to me. Rebecca herself was decent. She helped the Coliseum feel more alive, to say. As many people in the Coliseum I care less for. Even though at the end, most of them joined the Grand Fleet, I only cared about like 3 of them. The Pisser, Cabbage, and Sai, who had the most random fight that was animated so well. And then afterwards, he gets a wife, like an Adam Sandler movie. And then at the end of the Coliseum, we meet someone very special, Sabo. Who would have thought? The most predictable fake out I've ever seen, more than the eagle. Man, I'm gonna be completely honest, Sabo's disappointing. Like, all he does through this arc is just him be like, Luffy, it's good to see you again. He grabs the fruit, eats Ace's devil fruit, gains fire powers, fights the blind guy, and that's all he does. And funny enough, because I had to watch the episode of Sabo, it had more story with him. It showed what they were doing when they got here, along with his partner in crime, Koala, the girl from the Fishman flashback who looked like an Animal Crossing character. She's part of the Revolutionary Army too, like Sabo, which Sabo throughout the whole episode of Special was just like, I'm gonna get Ace's devil fruit. It was a flashback to him just being like, Ace is dead. And here's a little fun fact. The original dub voice actor was in the episode of, but he got fired because of reasons. And they changed his new voice actor to the Ichigo dub voice actor, which, man, Oda's foreshadowing really does strike again.
I do have some good news, though. Seems Luffy's well on his way to becoming king of the pirates.
Older brother, actually. I know he can be quite a handful, but take it easy on the kid.
Back to Sabo, he destroys the Coliseum, and that's how they kind of continue on and connect the plot more. Which then leads us to the Birdcage. This was one of the reasons why I felt so padded out. It was like, you must kill people or take these bounties, until at the very end where Joker's like, I want to play a game, and just smushes the Birdcage together, hoping to kill everybody. And that's what the rest of the arc was about, just trying to get the Joker and defeat him while they try to fight the other members of his family, which they all felt kind of weak, but they somehow pull their own against the Coliseum fighters. I don't know how. The best ones in Joker's family was obviously Senior Pink and Baby 5. They both had their own backstory too, which was incredibly sad, especially Senior. course. Speaking of Joker, since I kind of talked about the story mostly, let's chit-chat about the characters. With, of course, Joker. Good old Joker. Always that little side character you would see throughout the story. Like in Jaya, I believe, and Marineford, where he's like, I'm gonna be cool, but I'll be relevant later.
That's a surprise tool that can help us later.
He always felt cool. Well, now he's the forefront as he's the main antagonist of this story, and he's one of the best ones. Doflamingo was such a nice fresh air, as many in the past kind of felt like jokes. Like throughout this whole time skip, the antagonist was either forgettable Arlong Park, Horny Jones, or Caesar Clown. Still a fun character, but not a villain. So Joker was a nice breath of fresh air, as he was manipulative, cunning. He used quite a weak devil fruit, the string fruit, as a very viable resource. He was able to puppet people, fly, like duplicate himself, create a whole birdcage, and perform surgery on himself. That was pretty badass. I'm just glad to see that again. And since we're talking about characters, I want to this time around talk about the Straw Hats, since thanks to this arc, they had to split up, which seems bad at first, but was kind of handled pretty good, only one exception, but it gave the underdogs some time to shine. And let's start off with the main boy himself, Luffy. Luffy doesn't really need development. I mean, he's the main antagonist and all, but it's just nice seeing him have fun in the Coliseum, become friends with Rebecca just because he gave him a bento. But he still has his badass moments, like the foot clash with Joker. And the fight itself was pretty decent, but there's a moment in the middle where Luffy had to recharge, and it spent just 3 episodes being like, we need 10 minutes. 10 minutes until Luffy can take him down with one punch. And those 3 episodes were so boring. But with the big fight, we got a new gear 4th, with Boundman. The design is a little too much like Frankie, but it grew on me. The only part I don't like about it is the eyes. Just the dead shot eyes. Looks like the main poster for mouthwashing. Good old Lost to Zoro. He doesn't do much, but that's a good thing. Honestly, throughout most of the time skip, I feel like Zoro had more moments, even more than Luffy. Like Return to Sabo, he sliced the whole ship. Zoro almost took down Horny Jones in Fishman Island. He took down the sexy hot Ice Frosty the Snowman girl. So with Dressrosa, he doesn't really do much other than get lost. His fight with Pikachu. His fight with Pikachu was more good when Pikachu was in its stone form. When he wasn't, it was very quick and sad. But it was nice seeing him use Armor Hockey in that whole Plan 5. That was a pretty cool badass moment. But he was just here for the ride. And he had a new bounty of 320 million. With Luffy's, his was 5 million. Forgot to mention that. Robin was the one exception that I felt like could have done more. After the Thanos snap of the Straw Hats being cut in half, I would have thought she would do much more than just follow around Pisser and Rebecca and just protect them. Although her moments with Pisser were pretty fun, it would have been better if she just faced the sword guy for guys who looked like a kite, but nope. And with her bounty, she went up to 130 million berries. I think it's because most of the Straw Hats gained 50 million from their bounties. You know how I was talking about underdogs? Well, Frankie was one of them in this arc. My boy Frankie. He is such a cool guy, but gets very little time. And this arc finally showcases it. He went there, took down the factory, had a great bro bond with Senior Pink, fought him well in a sumo-like tournament. It was like watching Wii Sports boxing. And after the defeat was like, don't worry bro, you're still cool. Destroys the factory and just all around just fun. I love Frankie. But the sad part is, he also only gained 50 million from his bounty. He deserved more, damn it. And finally, the MVP award. A one to a man I least expected. Someone who gets spotlight once in a blue moon. And that's Usopp. Not only did he take down the biggest threat being Sugar twice, but he saved Law and Luffy. His iconic slingshot moment. I also wish he took down the Slimer guy, but I guess Law had to do something. But weirdly enough, Usopp had his first bounty, and it was 200 million. How did he get 200 million, but Frankie only got 50 million? Plus, then of course, taking down Sugar, activated his moment, God Usopp. And since I just reminded myself, let's talk about Law too. Law was fun. It's cool seeing the worst generation kind of shine, since after Sabo they kind of vanished, and we got to see Law's backstory. He used to work for Joker, was friends with his brother, while also having an illness, and the only solution was to eat the op fruit, but at the cost, Law's friend, who was Joker's brother, dies. But with Joker's defeat, Dressrosa is saved, everyone escapes from the Marines, Mr. shows off the new bounties, Rip Choppers, and they assemble the Grand Fleet for the Straw Hats as they celebrate their victories and head to Zoe. Just so interesting. So Timeskip had kind of had downers after downers, just not bad arcs, but just far from the ones where we were used to, like Thriller Bark, Alabasta, Ines Lobby. Pretty much most of the pre-Timeskip was always so good, it has so much to offer. Whereas Fishman Island, Punk Hazard were still decent, but just compared to the rest were letdowns, which thanks to Dressrosa was a big improvement. Dressrosa kind of just saved the Timeskip, as it was Alabasta too, sure, but it was just also fun. At first I was kind of dreading it, why it took me so long to finish it, but at the last episode when they were recapping the whole arc, I had a smile on my face, and I really was like, man, that was a really great arc. It had the pre-Timeskip charm, while still being like post-Timeskip, but man, it's just such a shame. Because of them being caught up with the manga, it just ruins the pacing for the anime. It's one of the biggest outcries to why people just completely ditch the anime and go to the manga, which is still kind of good to do as you're still experiencing One Piece, but there's still so much that the anime's doing, especially recently. I've just been hearing it gets better and better. So even with the bad pacing, I recommend you watch Dressrosa. Just don't do what I do. Please watch One Piece for Dressrosa. Maybe for 102, I don't know that one yet. But next time will be different. Next time we'll finally have shorter arcs.